Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. So today I'm going to be doing a spoiler review of the new 2018 Halloween, which is a sequel to Halloween released in 1978. So when it comes to the Halloween films, like I said in my regular review, I absolutely love them. Well, most of them. There are some really crappy ones. But for the most part, this is like my favorite horror movie series, so I was super excited for this new one. I did my regular review. I gave the movie a 9. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. I actually saw it a second time today, and I like it even more this time. I actually think this is a movie that is better the second time. Because the first time I walked out of it, as much as I still really enjoyed it, I still was a little bit disappointed, and there were some things I had some problems with. And on the second viewing, those problems actually weren't really that apparent anymore. So I actually would say the movie improved, and I might even say it's a 10 out of 10 now, which I know is like crazy, but that's actually how I feel. I actually like this movie even more the second time around. It's really loud outside. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing a spoiler review today since I want to get really into this movie, talk about not every scene, but talk about all the big scenes, all the things I couldn't say in my regular review. Now, sorry about the lighting, first of all. I don't have very good lighting in this room. If I turn this light off right here, as you can see, it looks terrible. So I kind of have to have this on, and then it makes it look like I'm wearing lipstick, so it's one or the other. But yeah, so this movie basically opens up with one of the scenes we saw in the trailers, which is where they're basically at the sanitarium, the podcasters or investigative journalists, and they're basically trying to get an interview with Michael. They're trying to get him to talk. They're trying to prompt him, with different techniques. One of the techniques is the male reporter. I don't remember their names. I think it's Aaron. He pulls out Michael's mask and tries to see if that'll get him to talk. All the other inmates start going crazy, and they all start going insane. I really like this. It makes it seem like it just adds more to him being pure evil, more than just a human. The way all of them are reacting, it's like they can sense it. The dogs can even sense it. The dogs start barking. So I really loved this. This guy's just yelling at Michael to try to get him to say something, and then of course we just cut straight to the Halloween text, and we have the opening credits, which is done just like the original movie. In the original, obviously, you have the pumpkin, and it's slowly zooming in on it. Here, we actually have the exact same pumpkin, except it starts off destroyed, and over the opening credits, it actually reforms back into the pumpkin. I absolutely love this intro. The new theme, it's the same theme as the original, except it's got some new added instruments and stuff, and it sounds amazing. I'd say it sounds even better, and the pumpkin just looks absolutely amazing. So I love the opening sequence to this movie. It was so great, and I just love the way it cut straight to the text right as the guy was yelling, like, say something. That was absolutely fantastic. Then we get to kind of catch up with Laurie and stuff. So she's, still traumatized, like 40 years later after what happened. She's, apparently gone through like 2 failed marriages. The podcasters basically offer her $3,000 to try to get her to, talk about this whole situation. She ends up kicking them out of her house. She takes the $3,000 and ends up giving it to her granddaughter, who wants to save up for college. So that was something I really liked, because I feel like Laurie normally would have not done this interview, but the only reason she was doing it was so that she could use that $3,000 for her granddaughter. Because one of the things I liked in this movie is the family dynamic. Obviously, there was a family dynamic in Halloween H2O with her son, and that was probably one of the best parts of H2O, was seeing her and her son in that movie. How they didn't get along super well because, she's so overprotective in both movies. And that's something I really like about the character of Laurie. I like how they brought that back here in this kind of, reboot of the sequels. So I really liked that. I like how she doesn't really get to see her granddaughter that much. And how, like, her and her granddaughter actually have kind of a decent relationship that her parents don't know about. That was something I really liked. Because it seems like something that would be natural. It seems like something that would happen. So that was one of my, that was an idea in the movie that I really liked. So we get to meet their family. We have Karen, who is the mother, played by Judy Greer. We have the father. I don't remember the actor's name or who the character's name is, but I liked the family dynamic here. They're really enjoyable. We get to see some really awesome stuff with the 2 investigative journalists. They're just going around, basically. We have this really great sequence. It's actually one of the better ones in the movie. It doesn't involve Michael. And basically we have this whole family dinner scene going on where, Allison and her boyfriend are, having dinner with their parents or whatever, and they're talking, and then Laurie comes in and actually ends up taking a drink basically and starts chugging this wine and sits down and she starts crying. That's one of the things I really liked. I really liked the emotional side of her character in this movie. That was something I wasn't really expecting, because in the trailers we just see her being this complete badass. So I really liked how there was also this level of just sadness and whatever coming from her. Something I was not expecting, is something that really surprised me and I thought was great. So I just really liked the development of Laurie here. I thought it was perfect. Then we get one of my favorite sequences in the movie, basically. Laurie is, in her car. She's drinking from like a bottle of like alcohol or whatever. She's getting drunk. She has a gun in her hand, and we see like it's cut between different sequences. So we also have like the bus going on where they're loading Michael onto the bus, and there's this amazing soundtrack playing in the background. The soundtrack in this movie is absolutely fantastic. The score that plays during this scene is fantastic, and I loved it. So this is a really great sequence because you see how Laurie is really, you can tell in this scene that she wants to kill Michael. She's going to try to, I don't know if she was going to kill the bus driver in order to get to Michael, but, she's definitely planning on doing something, and she just sits there and she just starts screaming, and I really like that because you can just see how much this is affecting her. And then, of course, we get to see some more of the bus later on because it crashes. We get to see this kid and his father arrive. Now, the kid's voice really annoys me. He has, this really annoying voice. That's just something that I wanted to bring up. But basically, the dad gets out of the car to investigate. He doesn't come back, so the kid goes looking with his hunting rifle. He finds Dr. Saman or something. I don't remember the doctor's name. Dr. Sartain, who is Michael's new psychiatrist. So the kid accidentally shoots him in the shoulder, I think, and then runs away. He goes back into his car to start it up, and then Michael's in the backseat and just basically breaks this kid's neck. So yeah, there you go. Michael kills a 12-year-old kid or whatever in this movie. There's some people complaining online, which I find kind of funny. They're saying horror slashers shouldn't kill little kids. I mean, that's the reason people love Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and want to dress up with them for Halloween, is that they don't kill kids. And I messaged the person back saying, isn't Freddy Krueger's whole backstory literally murdering children? And of course I didn't get a response. But I just find it funny. I don't really care if Michael kills a kid. So Michael, that's basically how he gets the car, and then that's basically probably about 30 or so minutes in. It does take about 40 or so minutes for Michael to really get his mask back, but what's going on in that moment, when I first saw the movie, I thought it was kind of slow, but rewatching it, the movie's actually super fast-paced, which was a feeling I didn't have the first time, so that was kind of interesting. But yeah, the next scene we have is fantastic. We have the reporters, the investigative journalists, podcasters, whatever. They're at this gas station. We see Michael walk by them in the background. The girl goes in to ask where the washroom is, and then we see, actually, if you look in the background, you can see Michael hitting, the mechanic with a mallet or whatever. So she goes to the washroom, she's in there, then Michael comes in and he's opening all the stall doors, and then she's in there and he tries to break in, and then she's crawling away and stuff, and he's grabbing her. So Aaron comes in the room and fights Michael for a second, and then Michael just brutally kills him. He keeps on constantly smashing his face all around the washroom, whether it's the wall or the washroom doors or whatever. His face is all bloodied up. One of his eyes almost looks like it's kind of popped out of his head almost, kind of like Glenn in The Walking Dead, that show that I don't watch anymore. But yeah, he's all bloodied up, he dies, and then the girl just gets strangled and her neck snaps, and then we cut to we cut to Michael putting on the mask, so he finally has the mask back, and that was so awesome seeing him with the mask on. I love the mask in this movie, by the way. This is definitely the best mask we've had since the original movie, because it looks just like the original mask, just rotted and aged, because it has been 40 years, so I love the look. And then there's some other stuff that happens. We get to see some more stuff with Laurie and whatnot. We do get this one scene that I absolutely love. This is probably my favorite sequence in the movie, when we have Michael basically walking around on Halloween night. It's this one tracking shot. I think there's actually technically 2 or so shots in this scene, but it's just these long tracking shots of Michael going around, grabbing a hammer, beating this lady's head in off screen, grabbing the butcher's knife, walks up to a baby, and then just leaves, and then and goes to this other house where he basically stabs this lady right through the neck. It was really great. That whole sequence was my favorite part of the movie because you have the Halloween theme playing in the background. It's a tracking shot of Michael. I love tracking shots in movies, so that was fantastic. And I just what a great way to bring back Michael, with this huge scene. I'm glad it wasn't in first person, because I know in the original film there's a lot of first person view shots from Michael. I like how this was done as a tracking shot. I think that was really, really cool and really inventive. There is some party stuff in this movie as well with the teenagers. I mentioned in my review that kind of annoyed me. Doesn't bother me on the second rewatch. I think the reason it didn't bother me is because I realized how little it's actually in the movie. There's literally one scene that lasts about 2 minutes at a party, and it really didn't bother me on the second viewing. I still wasn't a huge fan of the boy characters, but it wasn't anything that really takes away from the movie in the long run. But yeah, basically, Allison leaves the party because her boyfriend's being a dick and he's drunk and stuff and is kissing other girls and whatnot, so she leaves. And then, we get some more stuff with Michael. Michael ends up going to this girl named Vicky, who is babysitting this little kid who is hilarious. This little kid, the dynamic between the two of them is great because, she's saying all these things about how her friend's bringing over Alakazam, and she's talking to him on the phone, and then the kid knows it's weed. So he's saying how, like, oh, I'll tell my mom that you're bringing over weed, and she's like, I'll tell your mom about your browser history. He's like, you better not. Like, the dynamic was hilarious, and I really liked how they were, like, swearing at each other and stuff. But it was goofy, but it was really funny. And then, Vicky tucks him in. She's saying how, like, he's actually her favorite kid to babysit. Right after earlier she said that he was, like, one of the worst ones, and she, like, takes care of a lot of dickheads. So it was really, like, nice seeing that. And then you just know she's gonna die right when she says that, even though they show her death in literally the trailers and in one of the TV spots. It's just like, you feel bad. That's one of the things I liked about this movie, was besides the boyfriend characters, only one of them dies anyways, and he wasn't even a boyfriend, but you actually kind of care for the character deaths. I mean, the random ones you don't, but there are some deaths in this you actually do feel bad. This was one of them, because you see the dynamic between her and this kid, and it's just nice, and you felt kind of bad. At least I did when she got killed, especially in such a brutal way. It was kind of off-screen, but it was still pretty brutal. She, like, opens up the closet, and Michael just stabs her, and then repeatedly stabs her again and again. And then her boyfriend comes in and tries to fight Michael, and then it just cuts later on. The police arrive, and we get to see a shot of him. He's kind of killed in a similar way to how one of the original kills in the first movie, where the guy's pinned to the wall with a knife, except it's a little bit different here. His head's kind of, like, twisted almost, and he has a knife right through his back, and then he got a tattoo that says, 10/31, 2018 or 18 or whatever, kind of, I guess, the day that they banged for the first time. I don't know. They don't really explain the meaning of the tattoo per se. But yeah, so he has a really cool death. The knife is, like, through his neck, I think. And the Vicky's revealed to be underneath the ghost bed sheets or whatever. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And, like, the pumpkin with the heart eyes is in the, like, fishbowl. I really like, not fishbowl, but fish tank. I really like just, like, these whole sequences. They're really great. There weren't any sequences like in the original where you have, like these, like, there were some suspenseful scenes, like the final act I really liked, but there's not as much suspenseful scenes as there was in the original, where you have Michael, kind of appearing from the background in the light. That was one thing I kind of missed, but I still love the sequences with Michael here. It was great. So we just have a lot of awesome sequences. There's a lot of death in this movie. There's some brutal kills. There's this one boy who Allison's walking home with after she, like, left her boyfriend. She leaves this guy because he's drunk and he's kind of being an idiot as well. And then there's a sequence where there's these motion sensors, and, the lights turn on whenever something moves. So it goes dark, and then they come back on and Michael's somewhere else, and they go off, and it's off for a few seconds, and boom, Michael just swings the knife down, and this guy runs away, and he gets stabbed in the back, and then Allison comes back to find his body, and he's basically, like, pretty much impaled through the fence, like the iron fence. He's got, like, one going through his chin, coming out of his, like, eye, basically. It was really gory, and there's blood pouring from his mouth. And then Michael comes out, and this is my favorite new theme in the soundtrack. There's this one theme where when Michael comes out, it's called The Shape Hunts Allison. You can search it up. You have this amazing electric guitar that comes in, and it's just like, BAM! When Michael appears. That's definitely my favorite theme, besides the original, to be in the Halloween series. I don't know about Halloween series, because there's some classic ones in the original, but definitely in this movie. It was such a great theme. So she kind of runs away from Michael. She bangs on somebody's door, and they let her in. And then, Michael basically just continues on. He doesn't really care, so he goes after other people. Laurie is now with her daughter, and she's basically saying how, like, to her daughter Karen, that, like, I told you so, basically. Michael's going around stuff, so she ends up finding Michael again because the police are now investigating these murders or whatever. By the way, this is kind of scrambled. Some of the stuff happens later on, like the death with the impalement, that happened later than this. But Laurie finds basically the police officer who does have some history with her. My guess is that he's probably one of her ex-husbands, because I mentioned she has two. And I kind of have a feeling that these two are supposed to be exes. I just have this feeling, because they know each other. That's not a question. They refer to each other by, like, their first names and stuff. They clearly know each other. It could just be because he's the first responder or whatever, on the night that the 1978 killings happened. But I think there's more to it than just that. I think that they're supposed to be kind of together in the past. But yeah, so they end up kind of teaming up for a second to find Michael. Doesn't last very long, but I liked that sequence. They do find Michael, and she shoots him in the shoulder, but he gets away. And I just really liked all of this. This whole part of the movie, basically, the whole movie is great. I mean, what can I say? I loved everything in this movie. But skipping forward, Michael ends up getting run over eventually by the police officer, and yeah, this is after Allison runs away. Michael gets run over by the police officer, and the doctor Sartain's in the passenger seat or whatever. So Sartain goes up to Michael after he got run over, and basically checks his pulse, and he's like, "Oh, you killed him." Whatever. And obviously this police officer still wants to blow Michael's brains out. He's like, I'm gonna still blow his brains out, so step away. And the doctor ends up pulling out like a scalpel or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was supposed to be, and he basically slits or stabs the officer in the throat. And this is where a lot of people really don't like. This is one of the major issues I've heard with a ton of reviews for this movie, and I actually don't mind this. I don't know why people are so pissed off with the fact that the doctor kills the police officer. It doesn't bother me at all. I kind of like it, honestly, because it shows how like he's been taking care of Michael for so long, and being in this insane asylum or whatever almost made him go insane. And he just wants to see Michael talk. Like that's what he's been trying to do for years and years. And he thinks if he can get Michael to Laurie, maybe he'll talk. And that's one of the things in this movie is. I don't think Michael really cares about Laurie. I don't think Laurie's his target. I think Michael really just wants to kill whoever, but Laurie is so paranoid that she thinks Michael's going after him, so now she's going to go after Michael. When really Michael's just going to kill anybody he wants. The only reason he goes after Laurie is because that's where he gets brought at the end of the movie by the doctor. Speaking of the doctor, he has a great death. I don't like how he puts on the mask. It just looks stupid, and it's kind of pointless because he takes it off right away. They don't directly say it, but I'm pretty sure the doctor is the one responsible for the bus crash. I think that's something we can all assume. Originally, I think the original ending was supposed to be that Laurie was the one responsible. So, yeah, I like either of the choices, but I think it's the doctor, personally. So, anyways, Michael breaks out of the police van by basically, or police car by kicking, the metal part that kind of blocks you from the police officer, and it just goes right into Sartain's head. So Michael pulls Sartain out, and then Sartain's like, just say something. And Michael does not say anything, luckily. He just stomps on Sartain's face, and Sartain's head just explodes. By far the most, gruesome death in the entire movie. Such a gory death. I love this death so much, because you can, they don't just, have a quick cut. The shot lasts, only a couple seconds. But then they cut back to it later, and you can see, his ear is, you can find his ear and the chunks of, brains and stuff. And then there's another shot later on where you can see, it's basically just the top half of his head that was crushed. From here down is actually normal. Here's all splattered. It's such a great death. My favorite in the entire movie. Probably my favorite in the series, honestly. It's just so gory. But I do love the head smash kill earlier on when Michael's just bashing the Aaron's head all over the place. But yeah, so this guy just gets completely screwed over. Allison breaks out of the car. She runs away. She ditches. She's running through the forest back to the Myers house, to Laurie's house. Michael, eventually, these police officers come across the dead body of the doctor. So Michael, just kills these two officers off screen. We see them later, and their deaths were awesome. Basically, one of them gets his throat slit with a scalpel, and then he gets stabbed in his head. The other officer has his head cut off and carved out to look like a jack-o'-lantern. It's basically everything on the inside's taken out, and there's the eyeballs and the mouth are ripped out. And yeah, so the guy looks like a jack-o'-lantern, and then Michael put the other officer's hand holding a flashlight, so that's what's creating the glow. That shot's so creepy. I mean, I just love how messed up Michael is in these movies. Because in the original, obviously there's some creepy stuff he does, like the blanket and that kind of stuff, but in this movie, it's even worse, or better, I guess you could say. You have, the stomp and everything. Michael's brutal in this movie, and I absolutely loved it. So Michael, is going after Laurie now. Laurie sends her daughter to the basement because they have this secret basement where basically, there's a remote that can basically open up the pantry, or not the pantry, the kitchen counter or whatever. It opens up and it reveals stairs that go down to the basement where there's a bunch of shotguns and stuff. So Karen goes down there and stays down there by herself. Laurie's kind of going around. Karen's husband was killed earlier. He got strangled by Michael. It was probably the lamest kill in the movie, honestly. So Michael punches through the glass and is strangling Laurie and bashing her head against the wall or the door, and you think she might. Well, I didn't think she was gonna die, but she takes a shotgun and blows Michael's 3 of Michael's fingers off. Basically he's down to these 2 fingers, I think. So yeah, he gets his fingers blown off. It was great. And then, she goes back downstairs to her daughter. I don't remember exactly what happens, but Michael gets in eventually. And and you have this moment where basically she's trying to find Michael. Basically, she's going around the house, going room by room, and then as soon as she's done checking her room, she presses this button, and the doors slam down. So if somebody was in there, they couldn't get out, or if somebody wanted to get in one of those rooms, they couldn't go in, which was really great. Eventually, she finds Michael. They have this big fight. She gets stabbed, and then Michael throws her off the roof. And he's looking at her body, and she's lying on the ground unconscious. Then Allison gets to the house, and she's screaming. She's like, "Mom, grandmother!" And then Michael, looks like to the direction that the sound's coming from, and he looks back. Laurie's gone. It looks just like how it's basically the exact same thing as when Michael disappeared in the original. I love that. That is like probably my favorite like little callback in this movie. It was so great. And I don't know if Chris Stuckman was complaining about that in his review, because he's complaining about some of the callbacks, like, oh, there's this one washroom sequence that's straight out of H2O. Completely fucking different. And this was done this was a great scene. Like, I just love this so much. So, yeah, she's just disappeared. Allison goes down to the basement. Michael is looking around and that kind of stuff, and he finds out that they're in the basement, so he rips the kitchen counter. He just, after, a couple seconds, he rips it out. Karen grabs the shotgun or the rifle or whatever and aims up the stairs, and then Michael's standing Michael's off to the side. You don't see him, and Karen tricks Michael. It's great. She's basically like, "Mom, I can't do it," and she's like crying and stuff, and then Michael appears, and then she's like, "Gotcha," and shoots him right in the shoulder. So he kind of steps back. Laurie appears from the shadows, just like Michael's face did in the original. It looked kind of weird though, and then Laurie's like, "Happy Halloween, Michael," and stabs him in the shoulder. Michael's struggling. He falls down the stairs, and they all get out, basically. Karen does get her leg grabbed for a second, but it's fine, because Allison ends up grabbing a knife and stabs Michael's hand. So Michael's in the basement, and then Laurie pulls his lever, and all these spikes come out, basically trapping Michael in the basement. So he has no way of getting out, which he probably does, though, because I think they showed windows in the basement earlier, which was kind of confusing. So I guess Michael does get out, but, the house just starts catching on fire because she throws a flare down there, all these gas elements and stuff turn on. So the house is burning. You have this amazing shot where Michael's basically just standing at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at them, not even worrying about the fire that's literally about to touch his body. So they all run out. This truck pulls over, and they get in, and they drive away, and then you just have the house burning, and then you see a shot of the basement, and Michael's not there. So Michael's alive, probably. I mean, I don't think he's dead. I think if he was killed, a great shot, my friend mentioned this, would have been if he had his mask and then you see flames coming out of the eyes. I think that would have been a super cool shot, but I don't think he's dead. I think they're making this that he could live for a sequel, which I'm fine if there's a sequel. If there's, I don't want, a whole another series. If there's just, one more after this, I think that'd be great. So they drive away. Karen and Laurie's fine, and then you see Allison with a butcher's knife that she stabbed Michael with, and it zooms in on it slowly, and then it has a freeze frame. I don't like the freeze frame. I think they should have just zoomed in, but there's a freeze frame, and then cut to text Halloween. So that is how the movie ends. Like I said, all around a fantastic movie. I absolutely loved it. It's about an hour and 42 minutes or so if you take away credits, so it's not extremely long. None of these Halloween movies really are, besides I don't know, I think only the Rob Zombie ones were over 2 hours. The second one was, or the first one was. So yeah, great movie. I think it could have been a little bit longer. I know the slashers are usually really short. Slashers are usually only around an hour 20, hour and 40. I could easily, I would have easily watched this movie if it was 2 hours and 20. I would have been fine with that. If they just gave us more Michael, more Laurie, would have been great. Because Laurie doesn't actually have that much screen time in this movie, I don't think. It kind of seems like Allison's the main character. But at the same time, it doesn't really seem like there is a main character, because there's a lot of different characters this movie is cutting between, the three of them. But anyways, guys, overall, I loved it, like I said. I think this movie it's not, a scary movie. I don't find, that many movies scary anyways. The Conjuring movies I find genuinely creepy, but this isn't really that creepy, but I'm fine with that. I don't find the original Halloween scary, I just find it suspenseful. This wasn't as suspenseful as the original, in my opinion. The final act was probably the best suspense you have in the movie, but this was still an amazing film. I mean, I basically walked into this wanting just great performances and Michael killing and hearing the soundtrack and everything, and I got everything I wanted. And like I said, the first time I gave this movie a 9, I wanted it to be a 10. I gave it a 9, and I didn't give it that 10 because some of the teenage stuff I found stupid, and I thought the movie was a little bit slow for the first 40 minutes. Rewatching it, those two negatives were completely gone. I didn't have those feelings anymore. The movie actually felt really fast-paced on the second time. That's kind of why I wish it was a little bit longer. It goes by super fast. I think the one scene that could have been extended by like another 10 minutes is probably the final scene in the house. I think that could have been a little bit longer, and that would have been great. But yeah, all around, guys, fantastic movie. I'm going to bump my rating after this to a 10. So that's actually like the second 10 out of 10 I've given this year. The other film, or no, sorry, the third 10 out of 10. Incredibles 2 and Mission Impossible Fallout. This might be my favorite movie of the year, though. I'm hoping it is by the end of the year. I don't think there's anything else coming out this year that could top it. Maybe Bohemian Rhapsody, but I just don't think, for me personally, that's going to top it, as much as that film looks amazing. So there you go, guys. Those are my updated thoughts and like spoiler review on Halloween. Let me know down below, guys, what you thought of this movie. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.